Is tech spending like this enough to keep the market rally going? Because that has always been sort of the key test. Will these giants continue to spend on AI? Will it continue to rally big cap tech? We're going to find out a lot next week. So is this a good indication that the tech spend the race is still on?
I think so. I feel that this first month of the year has felt a lot like the first month of last year, except for you remove political overhang and you actually have the rest of the world trying to be more like America. At least Becca's talked to us about Davos because it's fascinating, I think, the impact that Trump's having on the rest of the world. But yeah, I think so. And if you think about Meta, they were the first one really a year ago to get out there and talk about it. It was probably about 18 months ago, but they started to talk about the CapEx plans. And they were in the year of efficiency. It was a question of, well, suddenly the stock that was rewarded for cutting back on CapEx in the metaverse going to be rewarded. And they absolutely have been. And in fact, they've outperformed the Mag 7 aggressively so far this year. So I like this story. I like the message this week from both the White House and policymakers is we're not even sure who's going to fund this. We've got a few people that have stepped forward to be shepherds of this process. But it was a week where AI and the prospect of spending and, again, the broadening of that trade. So I think it's very good for infrastructure. I think it's very good for some of the chip players that build the infrastructure. And I think this is a very important announcement. And I think kudos to Meta for getting out there first, because I think other folks want to do it as well.
It almost felt like, Larry Ellison was up there with SoftBank and, announcing Stargate, and Mark Zuckerberg was like, you know what, I'm in it too. $100 billion, here I am. And so this comes, there's a series of announcements here, a cadence at this point. So if there are any doubts about the AI spend and whether or not that would power the rally, I don't know. Has that been put to bed in your view?
I think it's been put to bed. It's always short term. It's always looked through that lens of maybe a month out, maybe 2 months out. But the good news about CapEx is that it's deflationary. So you have more productivity, you have more efficiency, so it actually brings down inflation. So if we can get CapEx going where we think it's going, inflation should come down as well.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I think there's a time element. I agree with you that if AI and everything related to it can increase productivity, I think that's where you're going.
And efficiencies.
Right. It's
right?
Gonna,
so that inherently,
is deflationary.
Yeah.
But in the short term, we're building infrastructure. We're building data centers. We don't have enough workers. We don't have enough materials. I see that as being inflationary. So reflationary, right? Good for growth and pushing up inflation. So
I'll put a button on this. So if you can increase growth,
we're not going to just fight it out all night.
No, because we're both.
He's like, I'm going to have the last word, and then we're going to keep moving on.
Yes,
is what I heard.
Yes. So if you can increase growth by 3 to 4%, you could actually bring inflation down ultimately by a percentage point as well. So if you can increase growth to where we need to be with all the CapEx spending, you could get a percentage point out and actually reduce that percentage point in growth that you got to the upside in inflation to the downside. So ultimately, I think it will be deflationary, but I understand your reinflationary worries.
Yeah, I think it's just timing. And if we're trying to get interest rates down, because Trump declared that will happen, and inflation down.
He knows a lot about interest rates, apparently.
I don't think it's going to happen in the short term.